These two young children, PJ and Olivia, often go to the grocery store with their mom. One of them is 8 years old, and the other is 4. They always love going grocery shopping with their mom because if they are well behaved, they are able to get candy. The local grocery store was where they normally went, and sometimes the mother would let her kids walk together to get an item so that they can feel like they were helping her. One day, the mother decided she needed to go to BJ's because she needed to buy other things that the local grocery store did not have. She packed the kids in the car and started driving to the BJ's while creating a list in her head of what she needed. As she's thinking to herself, she overhears PJ and Olivia arguing about who is going to push the shopping cart into the store. She says to her kids, "Now that you guys are arguing about it, neither of you get to push it." Olivia started whining and pouting and kept saying, "But Mom, that's not fair. PJ started it." The mom said that if they were well behaved for the rest of the car ride and in the store, she would let them go get something that she needed on their own. PJ and Olivia both made sure that they were well behaved, and towards the end of the shopping trip, the mom says, "Okay guys, this store is a lot bigger than the other one we go to, so you need to only get milk and come straight back to me." They both nodded their head and went to get the milk where their mom was directing them. When they got over to the milk, they were looking at which one to grab, and then PJ saw string cheese, and he grabbed it. Olivia and PJ started arguing because Olivia was insisting that he put it back and that they were both going to get in trouble and not get candy. Olivia started to yank the string cheese out of PJ's hand, and as they were playing tug of war, Olivia dropped the milk and it spilled all over the aisle. A worker that was passing by noticed and insisted that they follow him to the office because they were not with a parent or guardian. While they were in the office, the workers began interrogating them and asking them where their mother was and why they were alone getting milk. They started asking more personal questions like their names, their parents' names, and they even asked where they live. PJ knew that it was suspicious, so as Olivia was answering the question, PJ kicked her under the table. Olivia didn't understand what that meant and was unaware that she should not be sharing such personal information, so she continued answering all of the questions. Olivia and PJ were forced to stay in the office for several hours, and they both started getting very upset and worried because they wanted their mom. Finally, as the store was getting ready to close, one of the workers said that they would drive PJ and Olivia back home since their mom didn't come yet. PJ refused because he knew that his mom always said to never get into a car with strangers. One worker grabbed PJ's arm and started dragging him, and he noticed in a small window that his mother was tied up in a chair with duct tape over her mouth. He stood there in shock and started kicking and screaming, "They have my mom! Help!" No one was in the store anymore, so nobody heard PJ crying for help, and they threw PJ and Olivia in the back of a van, shut the door, and started driving away. Olivia was very confused and upset, and she would not stop crying. PJ was silent and trying to figure out a plan in his head about how to get him and Olivia back to his mom safely. He told Olivia that she needed to be very quiet, like they were playing hide and seek, and they didn't want anyone to find them. As they were at a red light, PJ opened the door to the van and carried Olivia out. They were alone in the middle of a busy street now with no sense of direction or cell phones. They sat on the corner, both crying and screaming for their mother. After an hour of just sitting there, they both decided that they would start walking, and when they found someone, they would ask how to get back to BJ's to get to their mom. As they were walking, Olivia tripped on a curb and fell on her face. Her face was gushing blood out of her chin, and there was no tissues or anything around to stop the bleeding. PJ started screaming, "Someone please help! My sister's bleeding and we lost our mom!" He was waving down cars, and one car eventually pulled over. This lady got out and asked what happened. She asked if she can drive them to the hospital to help Olivia, but PJ didn't think it was a good idea to get into the car with anyone else. He asked to use her cell phone so he could call his mom, but she didn't pick up. The lady called 911 and waited until an ambulance or police officer showed up to help them. PJ thanked her over and over and was very appreciative that this lady saved them. Once the cops arrived, they asked what happened and where they last saw their mom, and they wanted Olivia and PJ to describe the people that took them in the van. They asked if they remember what the car looked like, but they both didn't know because it was dark outside. Olivia was thinking to herself, and she remembered that she saw the letters OGL 5511 on the license plate. She knew this because OGL is her initials, so she remembered, and 5511 was PJ's birthday. She told the police officers, and they said, "Okay, you guys go in the ambulance and she will help you find your mom once Olivia gets the stitches on her chin." He quickly got into the car, and with the lights and sirens, he sped off. PJ and Olivia got into the ambulance, and at the hospital they walked in, and they were sitting in the room waiting for Olivia to get called. As they were sitting there, they saw a cop car pull up, and they saw their mom getting out of it. They immediately ran to her and gave her the biggest hug. As they were all outside hugging, they heard a really loud noise, and when they turned around, they saw the same van with someone sticking their head out the window with a gun. The man that put them in the van tried to shoot the mother, but he missed and shot a window of the cop car. They drove off, and the cops chased them and then eventually caught them and arrested them. The mother was safe with their kids at last, and they went into the hospital. Olivia got stitches, and they called the father to come pick them up and bring them home. Throughout the many dangers and obstacles, the kids were finally saved and back with their mother safely.